Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing with something a little different here. Going to be recapping both fights that happened tonight here on Saturday, reacting to both Jermall Charlo versus Juan Montiel, as well as Naoya Inoue versus Michael Dasmarinas. Firstly, we'll get started with the former there, which was some action in Houston at the Toyota Center, where middleweight champion Jermall Charlo managed to take care of the aforementioned Montiel over the course of 12 hard-fought rounds. To summarize here, Charlo was pretty much in total control from the outset, especially the first kind of 8 or 9 rounds. He was punishing him early on and managed to stun and hurt Montiel in the kind of middle frames, the 5th and 6th there. However, Montiel didn't go away quietly into the night, so to speak. He did manage to actually kind of get on Charlo in those last few rounds and actually pushed him back a little bit, surprisingly. Still, not enough. Too little, too late, as they say, and the American finish with scores all favoring him: 120-108, 119-109, and 118-109. All in favor of Charlo. So while the scores might suggest dominance, that's not so much the case. For starters, Charlo did get a little busted up. I mean, he wasn't, again, just, bruised and bleeding on every single inch of his face, but I mean, he did have some swelling there. He was bleeding. He did seem a little gassed in those last few rounds. He seemed, out of the two of them, a little more relieved that the fight was over when it was over, and ultimately he did not look like, against the level of opposition that he was against, he did not look like the best middleweight in the world at the end of that fight. He looked like a guy who had a rather hard fight with a B- fighter at 160 pounds. With all due respect to Montiel, he just did not look particularly great. He hurt him, he stunned him, and he, had some chances to potentially get him out of there, or at the very least knock him down, but nothing came to fruition, and it was just not one of those kind of scintillating performances that I would imagine Charlo was looking for. He seemed to fade once his shots didn't get the Mexican out of there as well. I mean, one of the criticisms that I suppose I had of Charlo, and that I sort of brought up during my prediction for this fight, was that Charlo tends to load up on a lot of his punches, and that tends to happen with a lot of guys who do have that kind of quick snapping power, where it's not heavy-handed. It's that they can put a lot of force into their shots and ultimately get guys out of there that way. Well, two things happen when that occurs in some fights. There's obviously a chance you can knock someone out, but if that doesn't happen, what ends up happening is you tend to get tired because you're putting so much energy into that specific movement, and it also kind of it seems to discourage you because it's not having the desired effect, and you then tend to shell up towards the end of the fights. This was a problem that even Canelo Alvarez has had in his career before, where a lot of people thought he had stamina issues and would tire in bigger fights and would seem to sort of lay off and would ultimately kind of fade, when in reality it just seemed more like he put so much torque into every single shot that when it did not work, it tends to, again, demoralize and exhaust you a little bit more. As he's gotten more mature as a fighter, he's taken some steam off some of those shots and put a little more nuance into his shots, and that's allowed for him to carry much more stamina into the later rounds of the fight, which Charlo did not do that well in this encounter. And even on a kind of comparison level for Charlo, this is a common opponent that he now has with another soon-to-be top-rated middleweight in Jaime Munguia, who had a very scintillating performance earlier today. And for Munguia, this is a great day. He was able to stop a common opponent that he and Gennady Golovkin have in one less round than Golovkin, and then in this situation, he had Charlo go 12 rounds with a common opponent that they have, that Munguia was allowed to get out of there within 2 frames back in 2017. It just isn't a great look for Charlo, of course, and a great look for Munguia. You're living it up right now in that sense, but again, of course, styles make fights, and people are going to say, well, matchups make things different, of course, and that's all true. That being said, you can't help to fight back long enough the kind of human initiative to compare things here, which is, and at the end of the day, he being Charlo, does not compare favorably under these circumstances, because he just seemed to struggle a lot more with a guy that you don't expect to be there by the 12th round, much less perhaps winning the 12th round. In any event, what's next for Charlo, it's tough to say. I mean, he has some options, of course. The problem is a lot of those attractive options are with another promoter and fighting with different broadcasters. It's he's, again, a decent draw. He's an exciting fighter, or at the very least can be. He certainly is talented, and he has an ability to potentially, make some noise in the division still. It's not like I'm going to write him off here. That being said, is he going to make the sort of moves necessary within his career right now to get those bigger fights to happen? Because right now Munguia has a chance to chase a Golovkin fight. He has a chance to face many of the British fighters that he's going to be given a chance to fight based on the deal he has with DAZN. Even, Murata, he could fight potentially for a version of the title. Even some crazy fight with Canelo Alvarez, if that's something that Canelo wants to do maybe early next year if he's trying to fight 3 or 4 times again. There's no reason for Munguia to want to leave. Golovkin's not chasing a fight with Charlo, and Canelo certainly isn't chasing a fight with Charlo. So at this point, Charlo has to decide, is he trying to, well, with all due respect, and face this kind of, these kinds of fighters and hope, he can just continue to win and pick up, relatively speaking, meaningless wins, or is he going to actually kind of chase this one and try to be great as opposed to just really good? But we'll kind of see how that goes heading into the future there. Moving on to the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas and Nevada, bantamweight world champion Naoya Inoue needed less than 3 rounds to take care of Michael Dasmarinas, stopping him with an onslaught of left hooks to the body. It was, a pretty good fight in the respect that it was an Inoue, display of dominance. I mean, Dasmarinas is not a bad fighter. When I was making the prediction for this fight, I looked into quite a bit of his fights, and he actually has some decent skills. He's tough. He doesn't give up. He will continue to throw, will continue to fight. And Inoue just made it look like a 100% mismatch. Before the fight got out, of course, I released my prediction was saying, maybe you should be looking at trying to buy some rounds to get a good over-under for yourself in this fight, because you just got the sense that Inoue right now is just, this is his moment like it's nobody else's moment, and he is the man. It looks like very few people are going to be able to stand up to the onslaught once it gets going. What's beautiful about him is that, yes, he is such an all-out attacker, but he does it with intelligence. It's not just him going out there and, balls to the wall, throwing everything at you that he possibly can, hoping that something lands and you're done. No, he's putting it together very, methodically, very intelligently. He can just process it so fast, and he believes in his speed and reflexes that he'll be able to get this done. And of course, when you couple that with the fact that he's such a brilliant finisher, it makes him all the more dangerous. I mean, he was doing such smart little things in there, feinting. He was turning that left into a kind of like a corkscrew jab so that you weren't able to determine if it was going to go downstairs or to the body, and Dasmarinas really couldn't anticipate that. And that does 2 things. Number one, it leaves open that shot to the body, but it also means that he's not expecting it and therefore can't prepare for it, and it's going to hurt twice as bad. And he was able to do that consistently for the 2 rounds that he had Dasmarinas hurt to the body. And it was a beautiful display of just devastation. And, again, considering that Dasmarinas is not a terrible fighter, it was just a beautiful, beautiful display by Inoue. And, of course, what's next for him? I mean, just mouth-watering fights. He could be taking on Nonito Donaire in a potential rematch of their great fight of the year candidate they had previously. This time it could be for all the titles, because Donaire is stepping in to fight Yonoel Casimiro for a unification bout at 118, and at that point all 4 titles would be on the line if Inoue was to face the winner. There's just so many great fights at 118 that could happen between these really great fighters that it's obviously something that I think they'll be lining up for Inoue, because it's a very marketable, palatable, exciting fight between some very, very good fighters. All 3 of them I mentioned there, are legitimately solid, great fighters right now. So future seems very exciting at bantamweight. In any event, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Would love to hear. Who do you think they should face next? What did you think of their performances? Again, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Please be sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Follow me at jcalderon_JOB. You can email me at jonboxing@gmail.com. Of course, visit jonboxing.com for schedule results, betting odds, rankings, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.